Reddit, what is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story? I once sat across from a guy who told me about killing his girlfriend, him cutting her into pieces and boiling her head. He explained why he killed her and wished he could talk to the parents so they could understand that what he did was a good thing. I sat with him for 45 minutes as he went into detail. Was the most surreal 45 minutes of my life. Source, worked in max security mental health facility. When I was about October 11th, I was ill and did not go to school one day. My parents both worked and couldn't get the day off, so told me just to stay in the house and don't answer the door to anyone, and the usual stranger talks, etc. I was sitting watching TV in the front room that has a big bay window that looks out onto the street, which is a main road with a row of shops across the road. I felt awkward with all the people walking past, so decided to shut the curtains slightly. And for some reason as I did, I noticed this man in his late 40s/early 50s with a beard and glasses, wearing a green knitted jumper. He looked like your stereotype child abductor. Something about him walking past just seemed strange, but not enough to play on my mind until he walked past again 10 minutes later in the same direction, as if he had just looped round the block. 10 minutes later he appeared again and stopped at the edge of the driveway for about 30 seconds looking at the window. He then proceeded to the door, looking in the window as he walked by. It was an old Victorian sandstone house with big storm doors on the front that you needed a key to open, so he couldn't get in. He knocked the door a few times, but something just told me not to answer. He then came to the window, banging it and saying something, but I couldn't make it out. I then noticed the realization in his face that there was a back door. My parents never locked the back door, so the dog could come in and out as he pleased. I ran through to the kitchen, and within seconds of turning the key and locking it, the handle started turning and he started banging the door. I just curled up in a ball on the floor. In fear, he started trying to open windows and eventually left about 30 minutes later. I dread to think what could have happened if I had not remembered the back door was unlocked. One more, because I'll always remember this guy. I got lost on the bad side of town many years ago and stopped at a Circle K to ask for directions. One of the guys standing outside the store came up to my window and said, "Hey, I'm going that way, I can show you how to get there." And me being the idiot 18-year-old female that I was, said, "Sure." About 3 miles into the journey, the guy turns to me and says, "By now I could have averted and killed you. I'm only telling you this because it happened to my sister 2 years ago. You seem like a really nice girl, and I would really hate to hear that something bad happened to you. Sorry to scare you, but if it saves your life, then I've done my job. You can let me out here." A similar thing happened my first day on a door-to-door sales job. A guy told me to come into his house so he could get his checkbook, and once again idiot 18-year-old me went in. He went through a similar spiel. Don't ever go into someone's house that you don't know. It's really quite amazing that I made it to my age, now that I think of it. I was 17 and had just gotten my license. Back in high school, my friends and I had made it a mission to find abandoned houses to throw parties in. We had a few good candidates, but the motherlode was this house I would pass on my home from work. It was an undeveloped shell of a huge home with a large property in the back. I had told one of my friends about it, and one day before we went to see a movie, I took him to the house. It was about dusk in summer, so I had my headlights on. I pulled into the front of the house and we were there for like 10 seconds tops before we pulled back to go to the main road. A minute later, this big truck pulls up behind us with its high beams on and riding our ass. My friend and I took note of it, but paid it no mind as we headed back to the main road. At the light, I turned right, but the truck cut through the gas station at the corner and blocked us off. Out of the truck comes this big hulk of a man, and my friend and I are shitting our pants. He taps on the window and I roll it down. Now the really freaky part is that this is a busy road and now there was no one in sight. He asks us what we were doing at the house, and I quickly lied and said we were making a U-turn. He stares at us for a few smiles and sends us on our way. To this day, the house remains unfinished and I'm convinced it's a drug operation of some sort. Back in 2004, I was a young/dumb 17-year-old country girl in the city for the first time for college. One night I decided I could totally safely walk back to my dorm at around 1:30 in the morning despite not really knowing where I was. Of course I instantly end up wandering around a terrible part of the city. Most of the streetlights are busted out, trash everywhere, loud arguments from inside the dilapidated as fuck row houses. In short, I wouldn't even want to be here in the middle of the day. A car drives up behind me and slows down, so they're keeping pace with me for nearly an entire block. I look over and there are 5 unsavory looking men inside. By this point, I was approaching an intersection, and they pull up, make a left, and stop in the street directly in my path. Motherfuck. I completely panic at this point and just stand there right in front of them. My mind went completely blank. I've never been that scared in my life. It didn't even make sense to try to run because they would have caught me without question. I'm not really sure how long I stood there, but suddenly the porch light in the house just past the car came on. Dude casually strolls outside carrying a bag of trash, and car peels away. I completely break down crying and shaking. Dude spots me and listens to my probably incoherent story, takes me inside and gives me a soda. Then he and his roommate walk me back to my dorm. They were both lovely and invited me to check out their stand-up sometime, but unfortunately I was too young to get into a bar. I never saw them again, don't even remember their names, but feel pretty confident that if that guy hadn't decided to take his trash out at 1 a.m. on a Saturday, my life would have taken a really shitty turn that night. I used to work as a cleaner at my school after class, so by the time I left, the roads were pretty quiet as everyone had already walked home. One day I noticed this man walking behind me, not too close, but obviously following me. He was quite creepy. His face looked like it was made of plastic, and he had a really subtle smile. Anyway, first time I saw him I thought nothing of it. About 2 weeks later I noticed him again, and from then on I saw him every single day when I was walking home. I didn't tell anyone because I was 16 and I knew my parents would want to start taking me to and from school, and that's not cool anyway. One weekend I was walking to my friend's house, which was a similar route to the one I would take to school. As I was turning up the main road that he would follow me back from school on, I happened to look over at a minibus that was parked at the bottom on the road, and I swear to God, he was sat in the driver's seat staring through the windows at me. I called my friend and made it very obvious that I was on the phone, thinking it might deter him, but when I next turned around he was about 2 meters behind me with that same plastic smile, started to sort of walk/run, and I could actually hear him doing the same, keeping the same pace and distance the whole time. I was still on the phone to my friend and I told her to open her front door and wait for me. When I got there I ran straight in and we locked up the door. The guy just stood outside her house for about 2 hours smiling and staring in the window. After that I never saw him again, and I've moved away since, but when I went back to visit my parents last weekend, that minibus is still there, parked in the exact same spot.
Thanks a lot for watching to the end. It truly means a lot to me. Make sure to like and subscribe for weekly content.